March 6, 2025. A desolate, marshy terrain on the border of Yonkers and the Bronx. A silent observer, an NYPD drone, hovers just above the reeds, its camera meticulously scanning the ground below. It's a search not for a suspect, but for answers to a disappearance that has rocked a community. At 10:17 a.m., the drone operator spots it. A splash of red against the dull landscape of brown and green. A partially submerged suitcase, a jarring piece of urban detritus in a place where it doesn't belong. A team of detectives approaches, their movements slow and heavy through the ankle-deep water. They extract the bag from the mud, and as the unzipped opening reveals a piece of white fabric, the worst fears of a community and a family become an unbearable reality. Inside the suitcase, a young woman lies, still wearing a white blouse and a gold cross necklace. Her face, though peaceful, is a tragic contradiction to the violence that brought her here. We found Pamela Alcantara. Detective Morales radios back to her team. Notify the family. The discovery transforms a missing person case into a homicide investigation, but it answers only one question while raising dozens more. How did a 26-year-old chaplain, a woman dedicated to helping others and beloved in her community, end up discarded in a marshy grave? The answer, as we'll find, begins with 3 words she spoke during her final phone call to her mother. "Mom, pray for me." What would you do if someone you knew suddenly disappeared? Would you recognize the warning signs before it was too late? Because in Pamela's case, those warnings were everywhere. If only someone had known how to read them. Say her name. Pamela Alcantara. Welcome to Say Her Name, where we tell the stories of Black women whose cases deserve more attention, whose legacies deserve to be honored. We are here to ensure Pamela's story is not forgotten and to highlight the urgent lessons her life and death offer. Where are you watching from? Drop us a comment and let us know. Pamela Alcantara was more than a headline. She was a vibrant, living woman whose essence was rooted in faith, family, and a fierce, quiet ambition. Her journey began in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, where she was born to a family that valued faith above all else. At age 7, she immigrated with her parents to the Bronx, New York, a new home where she quickly adapted while maintaining deep connections to her cultural roots and spiritual upbringing. By her teenage years, Pamela had already shown an unusual capacity for empathy and spiritual guidance. While other adolescents navigated typical teenage concerns, Pamela volunteered at her church, Iglesia Pentecostal, helping with youth programs and community outreach. Even as a teenager, she had this old soul quality, recalled Pastor Miguel Sanchez. People twice her age would seek her counsel. She listened in a way that made you feel truly heard. After completing a certification program with the Latin American Chaplain Association, Pamela became one of the youngest chaplains in the organization's history. Her daily routine revolved around 3 pillars: faith, family, and service. Mornings began with prayer and scripture reading in her small but meticulously kept apartment. By 9 a.m. she would be at the community center or hospital providing spiritual support to those in crisis. Evenings often found her leading prayer groups or visiting homebound church members. Without fail, each day included a phone call to her mother, a connection so reliable that its absence would later sound the first alarm. Pamela was the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday, who knew when you had a doctor's appointment and called to check how it went. Her cousin Nisa explained, she kept track of everyone else's lives while asking very little for herself. This selflessness extended beyond her official duties. When her grandfather needed daily medication but couldn't afford a home health aide, Pamela rearranged her schedule to visit him twice daily. When her aunt Isa lost a job, Pamela quietly paid her rent for 3 months until she found new employment. Yet beneath this exterior of boundless giving and serene faith, Pamela harbored the normal desires of a young woman. She dreamed of marriage and children someday. She enjoyed music and dancing at family gatherings. She saved for a trip to visit relatives in the Dominican Republic. These simple aspirations made what happened to her all the more tragic. The woman who helped so many navigate life's difficulties would ultimately be unable to escape the danger in her own home. The hardest part to understand, her mother would later say through tears, is that she spent her life teaching others to seek help, to reach out, to trust in support systems. But when she needed those same things, something held her back until it was almost too late. That something had a name: Junior Perez Diaz. Pamela met Junior in January 2022 at a Dominican cultural festival in the Bronx. He approached her as she staffed a booth for her church, introducing himself as a 43-year-old business owner who had recently returned to his faith after years of worldly distraction. The 20-year age gap raised immediate concerns among Pamela's family. Her mother later recalled her daughter's defense: "Age is just a number when two souls connect. Besides, older men are more settled, more serious about commitment." This rationalization that his age represented stability rather than a power imbalance would be the first of many warning signs misinterpreted through Pamela's lens of optimism and faith. In the beginning, Perez Diaz seemed to validate Pamela's choice. He attended church services with her, spoke respectfully with her family, and brought her thoughtful gifts: a new leather-bound Bible with her name embossed on the cover, books by her favorite spiritual authors. He listened attentively when she spoke about her chaplain work, expressing admiration for her dedication. He was so charming those first few months, Pamela's aunt remembered. He would bring food for the whole family when he visited, helped my husband with car repairs, offered business advice to Pamela's cousin. He worked hard to win us all over. This charm offensive extended to Pamela's church community as well. Perez Diaz made generous donations to church fundraisers and volunteered for community service projects. He befriended Pastor Sanchez, often engaging him in deep theological discussions that impressed the spiritual leader. "I was fooled completely," Pastor Sanchez would later admit. He presented himself as a man of genuine faith and character. We all missed the performance aspect of it. 3 months into their relationship, the charm began to sour. The first subtle shifts were barely noticeable, framed as concern and interest. Perez Diaz started questioning why Pamela needed to spend so many evenings at church events. He suggested she was overextending herself and needed more rest at his apartment where he could take care of her. When Pamela received texts during their time together, he would casually ask who was messaging her, his tone light but his eyes watchful. If she mentioned male colleagues or church members, he would later circle back to these mentions, asking detailed questions about these relationships. "It was so gradual," Nisa explained. He framed everything as concern for her well-being or interest in her life. Looking back, we can see he was mapping her relationships, identifying her support system before he began to isolate her from it. By the 6-month mark, Perez Diaz had convinced Pamela to move in with him, arguing that it would save her money and give them more time together. This acceleration of the relationship created the controlled environment he needed for the next phase of his manipulation. The man who had once encouraged Pamela's spiritual calling now complained about her unpredictable schedule. The man who had charmed her family now found reasons why they couldn't host gatherings at his apartment. The man who had impressed her pastor now suggested that some church members were taking advantage of Pamela's generous nature. The foundation was laid, the trap was set, and Pamela, still seeing him through the lens of their early relationship, didn't recognize that the door was already closing behind her. By early 2023, Junior Perez Diaz had established a system of control so comprehensive that Pamela's life bore little resemblance to her former independence. The digital surveillance began with what seemed like thoughtfulness. "I got us both new phones on my business plan," he told her, presenting the gift as a way to save her money. What he didn't mention was the spyware he installed that gave him access to her texts, calls, location, and even microphone. A neighbor later reported overhearing Perez Diaz confronting Pamela about a conversation she had with her mother, one he couldn't have known about unless he was monitoring her calls. "Why are you telling your mother our private business?" he demanded. "Don't you trust me to handle our problems?" His monitoring extended beyond her phone. In March 2023, Pamela's cousin Isa helped her change a flat tire and discovered a small black device magnetically attached under the dashboard. When questioned, Perez Diaz claimed it was a safety tracker in case the car is stolen. The explanation seemed plausible enough that Pamela accepted it, unaware that it was actually tracking her every movement. Most disturbing were the audio recorders found in their apartment after her death. Tiny devices hidden in the bedroom, bathroom, and living room that captured her private moments, prayers, and conversations. While Perez Diaz wasn't home, the financial control tightened simultaneously. He convinced Pamela to close her personal bank account and open a joint account instead. "We're building a future together," he reasoned. "This is what committed couples do." With access to her finances, he could monitor every purchase and question any expenditure he hadn't approved. When Pamela received a small raise at work, Perez Diaz suggested she could reduce her hours. "You work too hard," he said. "Let me take care of you." This seemingly supportive gesture further increased her dependence while reducing her contact with colleagues who might notice the changes in her behavior. The isolation from family happened through subtle manipulation. When her mother called, Perez Diaz would create distractions or start arguments that Pamela would have to address, cutting phone calls short. He found fault with her cousin Nisa and her aunt, framing them as jealous or judgmental. By mid-2023, Pamela's once vibrant social media presence had dwindled to almost nothing. No photos, no updates, no interaction with friends. The truth, as they would later discover, was that Perez Diaz had forbidden her from posting, convinced that any photo might attract another man's attention. The physical intimidation began with small incidents, standing too close during arguments, blocking doorways when she tried to leave a room, punching walls near her head. These demonstrations showed what he was capable of without leaving marks that others might notice. The situation escalated in February 2025 when Pamela confided in her mother about a terrifying incident. During an argument about her attending a women's retreat, Perez Diaz had held a pillow over her face, applying pressure until she began to struggle for breath. He removed it just as she started to lose consciousness, then immediately shifted to apologies and tears. "He said he didn't know what came over him," Pamela told her mother. "He begged me to forgive him, said he'd get counseling." This incident became the catalyst for intervention. Pamela's mother, aunt, and cousin recognized the danger had reached a potentially lethal level. They staged what amounted to a family intervention, presenting Pamela with evidence of the relationship's dangerous trajectory and offering a concrete escape plan. "We laid it all out for her," Nisa recalled. "We said, this isn't love. This is control, and it's getting worse. The next time, he might not stop with the pillow." For the first time, Pamela seemed to truly see her situation clearly. She agreed to leave, but the family knew this would be the most dangerous moment of all. The family's escape plan was methodical, addressing every aspect of her entanglement. They knew from domestic violence resources that the most dangerous time for victims is when they attempt to leave their abusers. First came the logistical preparations: a new apartment in a secure building, a used car registered in a relative's name to prevent him from tracking her. They meticulously planned the timing around his business trip to Philadelphia, creating a narrow window for her to move her essential belongings without confrontation. On February 28, 2025, the plan was executed. Within 3 hours, her essential belongings were moved. That evening, in her new apartment, Pamela experienced her first night of freedom in nearly 3 years. "I can breathe here," she said to her mother. "I feel like myself again." On Saturday, March 1st, Pamela spent the day with her family, finalizing plans to file for a restraining order on Monday morning. She seemed cautiously optimistic, making plans for the future. That evening, she returned to her new apartment to prepare for Sunday church service. At 9:47 p.m., she called her mother for their daily check-in. The conversation was brief, but would later haunt her family. Pamela seemed suddenly anxious, though she wouldn't explain why. "Mom, pray for me," she said before hanging up. What Pamela didn't share was that she had received a text from an unknown number earlier that evening. "I know where you are." Sunday, March 2nd, began with an absence that immediately triggered concern. For the first time in years, Pamela's seat at the 10 a.m. service remained empty. When she didn't show up, Pastor Sanchez told investigators, this wasn't a woman who simply forgot church. This was a woman whose life revolved around her faith. By noon, her mother's frantic calls went unanswered. She contacted Pamela's cousin Nisa and her aunt Isa who, using the spare key Pamela had given them, checked the apartment. What they found inside apartment 3B sent a chill through both women. The apartment showed signs of a disturbance. A purse was scattered, a blanket was askew on the couch, and a small smear of what appeared to be blood marked the bathroom tile. Most chillingly, a shower curtain had been partially torn from its rings. Despite the signs of struggle, the responding officers from the 44th Precinct lacked urgency, taking a report and advising the family that the detective division would follow up. Unwilling to wait, Pamela's family launched their own search. They created and distributed flyers with her photo and mobilized dozens of volunteers from their church community to canvass the neighborhood. Their persistence paid off when a detective from a missing persons squad, Marcus Rivera, took a personal interest in the case. After interviewing the family on Monday afternoon and learning about Pamela's history with Perez Diaz, Detective Rivera elevated the case priority. He noted in his case file the history of domestic violence, the signs of struggle in the apartment, and the victim's reliable patterns of behavior all suggest foul play. Rivera's first investigative step was to review security footage from Pamela's apartment building. The cameras captured her entering the building at 11:23 p.m. on Saturday, March 1st. More significantly, the footage never showed her leaving. The cameras did, however, capture another person of interest. At 12:17 a.m. on Sunday, March 2nd, a man wearing a baseball cap and surgical mask entered the building by following another resident through the security door. Though his face was obscured, his build and gait were consistent with Junior Perez Diaz. At 4:07 a.m., the same cameras recorded a man struggling with a large red suitcase in the elevator and then through the parking garage. The distinctive watch visible on his wrist would later be identified as matching one owned by Perez Diaz. With this footage in hand, Detective Rivera obtained Perez Diaz's cell phone records. The data revealed that his phone had pinged from towers near Pamela's new apartment between midnight and 4:30 a.m. on March 2nd, directly contradicting his initial claim to police that he had been home all night. By Tuesday, March 4th, the investigation had shifted from a missing person case to a suspected homicide. Police executed a search warrant at Perez Diaz's apartment, where they discovered a receipt for a red Samsonite suitcase purchased just 2 days earlier. They also found a small notebook containing surveillance notes on Pamela's movements and the address of her new apartment. Most damning was a hidden compartment containing the audio recording devices that had been removed from their previous shared home. Despite mounting evidence, Perez Diaz maintained his innocence when brought in for questioning, offering an ever-changing story that became more implausible with each new piece of evidence presented. The family's worst fears were realized on Thursday, March 6th, when the NYPD drone unit discovered the red suitcase in the marshy area near the Sawmill River Parkway. Inside was Pamela Alcantara's body. The search for Pamela was over. The search for justice had just begun. The medical examiner's report provided the clinical details of Pamela's final moments. The cause of death was determined to be homicidal asphyxiation, manual strangulation with sufficient force to fracture the hyoid bone in her neck. The time of death was estimated between 1 o'clock and 2 a.m. on Sunday, March 2nd, aligning perfectly with the security footage and cell tower data.
There's been a long, frantic search to find 26-year-old Pamela Alcantara. Her family, we're told, even flew up from the Dominican Republic after reporting her missing on Sunday from her Bronx apartment. Today, their worst nightmare after police sources tell us a duffel bag tossed on the side of the Sawmill River Parkway here in Yonkers is in fact Pamela Alcantara. And sources also telling us tonight that her boyfriend is now in police custody and is being questioned. We'll show you video earlier of the NYPD along with Westchester County Police rushing to this area of the Sawmill by Palmer Road and Yonkers Avenue on the Yonkers-Bronx border this afternoon. That's where they discovered the body inside the bag. Alcantara was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner will determine the cause of death, but sources tell us that Alcantara lived with her boyfriend at this building on Morris Avenue in the Bronx. After detectives gathered DNA evidence, Alcantara's boyfriend was arrested and is now in police custody. He's being questioned but has not been formally charged. Outside Alcantara's building, a small candlelight vigil was set up below missing posters that have been plastered all over their neighborhood.
I know it's a terrible, a news like that is something terrible. The only thing you have to worry about the people is living around, because you never know who is who.
I'm shocked, honestly. That's crazy. I don't know.
Again, we are told that Alcantara's boyfriend, sources tell us that he is in police custody tonight. He is being questioned, but so far has not been charged. When we visited the building earlier this evening, the NYPD had blocked off the floor where Alcantara allegedly lived with her boyfriend. They have not entered the apartment as they await the warrant. Detectives will continue investigating.
Through physical evidence, digital records, and Perez Diaz's eventual partial admissions, investigators reconstructed Pamela's final hours. After her last call with her mother, Pamela received the threatening text, "I know where you are," from a virtual number on an app he had since deleted. Her internet search history showed she looked up "emergency restraining order weekend," suggesting she recognized the danger. Security footage showed her checking her peephole multiple times, indicating she was anxious about someone's arrival. At 12:17 a.m., Perez Diaz entered the building by slipping in behind another resident. Neighbors later reported hearing a knock at approximately 12:20 a.m., followed by a woman's voice saying, "What are you doing here?" The confrontation began in the living room, where Pamela's phone was found still open to a text draft to her cousin that read, "He's he," cut off mid-typing. The struggle moved to the bathroom, and then back to the living room where the fatal confrontation occurred. The medical examiner noted defensive wounds on Pamela's hands and forearms, showing she had fought for her life. DNA recovered from beneath her fingernails would later be matched to Perez Diaz, providing crucial physical evidence linking him directly to the murder. What made the crime particularly disturbing was the calculated behavior that followed. Rather than acting in panic or remorse, Perez Diaz methodically cleaned the apartment, wrapped Pamela's body, and retrieved the red suitcase he had purchased 2 days earlier. This premeditated purchase suggested planning rather than a crime of passion, a detail prosecutors would later emphasize. Throughout this process, cell tower data showed his phone remained at the apartment location with no outgoing calls or texts, suggesting focused attention on the cleanup and concealment. After disposing of Pamela's body, Perez Diaz returned to his own apartment, showered, and changed clothes. Just hours after the murder, he began creating his alibi, calling Pamela's phone and leaving concerned voicemails. "Hey, just checking on you. Call me back when you get this." By Sunday evening, when Pamela's family had begun searching for her, he joined their efforts, an act of breathtaking audacity. He appeared at her mother's home, offering to help distribute flyers and suggesting places to search, carefully directing attention away from the Sawmill River Parkway area. The investigation accelerated dramatically after the discovery of Pamela's body on March 6. With physical evidence now secured, detectives could build a comprehensive case against Junior Perez Diaz. The autopsy findings provided crucial timeline confirmation, aligning perfectly with the security footage and cell tower data, placing Perez Diaz at her apartment during the critical window. Forensic analysis of the red suitcase yielded multiple evidence points, matching the exact model he had purchased and containing fibers from both his clothing and Pamela's. Most damning was the DNA evidence. His DNA was found under Pamela's fingernails from her defensive wounds. A single hair matching his DNA profile was recovered from the shower curtain used to initially wrap her body, and sweat residue on the suitcase handle contained his DNA. Digital forensics provided another layer of incriminating evidence. Investigators discovered he had used an app to send the threatening "I know where you are" message and had deleted his search history, which included queries like how to find someone who moved, largest suitcase dimensions, and areas without security cameras. Perhaps the most unexpected breakthrough came from his own vehicle. His Tesla's cabin camera had recorded fragments showing him placing the red suitcase in his trunk, providing irrefutable video evidence of the crime. With this mountain of evidence, detectives obtained an arrest warrant on March 7, 2025. Perez Diaz was taken into custody, his expression a chilling mix of shock and defiance. During his arraignment in Bronx criminal court, he pleaded not guilty, but his denial was a final, desperate act of psychological warfare against a truth that could no longer be contained. The prosecution's case, built on a mountain of evidence, was airtight. The legal battle for Pamela Alcantara's justice is underway, A fight that will not be easy but is absolutely essential. Junior Perez Diaz, the man charged with second-degree murder, first-degree manslaughter, and second-degree kidnapping, now faces the full weight of the justice system. For Pamela's family, the courtroom is a new battleground where they must relive the most horrific details of their loved one's final days. But it is also a place where they can finally seek accountability for a life so cruelly taken. The verified public records and court documents now serve as the official narrative, a meticulous record of the police investigation and the prosecution's case.
Te vas a pudrir en la prisión. You're never going home. Never. You're never going home, buddy. You ain't a chef for the rest of your life. You're never going home, buddy. You ain't chef for the rest of your life, buddy.
Un perro, un animal, un monstruo, que solo Dios y yo sabemos, maldito monstruo, monstruo.
They called him a monster, the devil, and a dog. The emotional scene Friday night outside the 4-6 precinct in the Bronx, as Junior Perez Diaz was charged with the kidnapping and murder of his ex-girlfriend.
Justicia para Pamela! Justicia para Pamela! Justicia para Pamela! Justicia para Pamela!
Meanwhile, the cries for justice for Pamela Alcantara echo just a few blocks away on Morris Avenue. The victim's family gathering for a prayer vigil outside the apartment building where she last lived with Perez Diaz.
Junior Perez was charged, and so our prayers have been answered. Our prayers have been answered.
Police say he killed the woman and then dumped her body along the Sawmill River Parkway. Investigators locating her remains inside this red suitcase in Yonkers Thursday morning.
Ninguna madre sufra.
I don't want no mother to suffer what I'm living through today.
Her mother rushing to New York from the Dominican Republic, trying in vain to find her. Alcantara was last seen FaceTiming her while entering her elevator Sunday morning, but the devout Christian never made it to church. Sources say detectives asked Perez Diaz where Alcantara was, and he told them she left in her pajamas carrying a big red suitcase. They later discovered video showing him allegedly wheeling her body out of the building in that suitcase and into his car.
She was afraid to say, "I'm getting hurt."
The victim's aunt believes Alcantara suffered in silence from her abuser, but was set to move out.
She never complaining about it. She was so quiet. She hid it inside.
Si no le ponemos un paro, ella no va a ser una, van a seguir haciendo más niñas.
If they don't put a stop to this, it's not only going to be my daughter that's going to die because of domestic violence, but many others will.
Law enforcement sources tell me that no domestic violence reports were ever filed by the victim. As for the suspect, he has 2 prior drug arrests, we are told, and is now awaiting his arraignment at court.
Pamela's story resonates on a deeply human level, and it highlights a harsh, unignorable reality. The insidious nature of domestic violence and the urgent need to address its roots before it escalates to tragedy. Her case is not just about a single act of violence. It is about the dark, controlling pattern that preceded it. The manipulation, the constant surveillance, the threats of self-harm. These are not just signs of a troubled relationship. They are clear, documented red flags that too often precede a lethal outcome. Pamela's death is a heartbreaking reminder that psychological and emotional abuse is a prelude to physical violence. It is a siren call to look past the surface-level charm and see the suffocation beneath. We can honor Pamela's memory not by dwelling on the brutality of her death, but by learning from the bravery of her life and the lessons her story offers. Her legacy advocates for increased awareness, preventative action, and comprehensive support to protect vulnerable individuals. Her case makes it clear that we must all be vigilant. It teaches us the importance of recognizing the signs of abuse and having open, non-judgmental conversations with those we love. We must create spaces where victims feel safe to share their fears and seek help without shame or fear of retaliation. The community and family support that Pamela received was a powerful force. Her family's immediate action in helping her secure a new apartment and a car underscores the vital role loved ones play. We, as a society, must strengthen these support networks. We must provide accessible resources for individuals trying to escape abusive environments. This includes not only safe houses and counseling services, but also ensuring that law enforcement and the legal system can offer swift and effective protections, such as restraining orders and thorough investigations of all abuse reports. The swift collaboration between the NYPD and neighboring jurisdictions in Yonkers was a testament to the power of coordinated action. This kind of cooperation is not just a procedural necessity. It is a life-saving measure. Pamela Alcantara's life was tragically cut short, but her story is a powerful call to action. Her memory prompts a collective responsibility to speak up, to offer support, and to ensure that no one else has to fight for their freedom alone. Her name, Pamela Alcantara, must be remembered as a catalyst for change. It is a name we must say not just to honor her, but to remind ourselves of the work that remains. If you know someone in a similar situation, please reach out to domestic violence resources in your community. You can also support organizations that provide safe havens and legal aid to victims. Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel to ensure that her name is never forgotten and that her story continues to inspire the change needed to end this cycle of violence.